Right, I'm going to do, this is another discussion. I'm going to talk about jobs in this one. And the subject of it is who could get a job in 1985? Actually, not many people could do. There was the year after 1986 is, I think it's still in the Guinness Book of Records for the year with the highest post-war employment. It was 3 point, could have been getting on for 3.5 million out of work. Well, the year 1985 was the year I left school, and even if you apply for tons of jobs, the only thing they could find for you was your training scheme in most cases, because that's all. Because if you got a proper job, the employer would have to pay you for it. Well, they weren't interested in paying 16-year-olds any money at all. But most of them would only take 16-year-olds on an YTS youth training scheme, because the money for that came from out of taxes. That came out of the taxpayers' money. It was a height of the recession. No, there was a bad the recession started in 1980, and it dragged on and on and on, and in the next decade there was another. In the decade after that, there was another recession after that, and I've touched on. I did this. If you see my discussion on why 2024 is a leap year, I mentioned that it shouldn't be. Let's hope it isn't a leap year, in the sense of people leaping off tall buildings, because 2023 was more Americans committed suicide in 2023 last year than any other year on record. So. And I read in the magazine of some 16-year-old boy who committed suicide because he couldn't get a job. But that's not exactly solving the problem, is it? Because you know what? How can you get a job when you're dead? But there was, I think in it all started in the 70s, when there was an oil crisis in the 70s. That there was after the Second World War, there was always full employment for a very long time, up until about. And then in, like, you talk about like 1973, there was this oil crisis, and I think inflation started going up an awful lot because of this oil crisis, and a lot of employers were having to make people redundant, and I think it was towards the back. I think they started sort of mid-70s. They started off with the idea of schemes, like government training schemes for if you like over 8, if you're over 18 and you've been out of work for a certain length of. I don't know what age you had to be to go on them. You could only go on money if you'd been out of work for a certain length of time. I think a length of time. And it came out. It all came out of the taxpayers' money. Then I think it was sort of like 1978. They introduced another scheme. So for 16-year-olds, it was called the Youth Opportunities Programme, YOP schemes, and they were just 6 months. They only had to keep you on for 6 months. They're only obligated to keep you on for 6 months unless they could give you the sack as a disciplinary measure any time during that 6 months. But and then the YOP in the 80s, YOP became YTS, Youth Training Scheme, and that was a year, but that was a year long, and then in 1985, the year I left school, it was raised up to 2 years. That was six. That was you got £27.30 in your first year and £35 in your second year. So you always had somewhere to go for as long as you towed the line for 2 years, and then after that it was kaput. And then you went. Then if you were over 18 and you'd been unemployed for a certain length of time, you could go on what was then known as a community programme scheme. And I remember saying to my mum, "There's no jobs anywhere these days, just schemes, and more schemes." Because that's how it was. You could, not many people could get a job straight from leaving school, because it would have meant that the employer would for an employer to take on a 16-year-old would have meant on a proper, on the basis of a proper job, would have meant they would have had to pay them. Well, they didn't have the money to pay them because there was a recession on, so that's why they took them on YTS schemes instead. But what was your situation regarding work? Were you on the dole in 1985, or could you get a job? Did you have any difficulties in getting a job? A lot of people did. Even if you'd been to university, you could come out of university and employed because you were overqualified. Right. So I'm not going to get a job now at my age, but I'd like to become. I'd like to become a writer. I'm good at making stories up, and I want to get a bit more of that done soon. Thinking up a time travel story at the moment, but we're not talking about. This is. What was the situation regarding work for you in 1985?